I think, secret keeping has been a big part of the legacy of this company, and I do feel, particularly in the early days of Imagineering, as the park was being conceptualized, WED was really this kind of black ops division of the Walt Disney Company. Nobody really knew what they were doing, and that idea of building something and keeping it veiled until you were ready to show it to someone. That's showmanship 101. It's why movie theaters used to have curtains. And so obviously that's the kind of storytelling that I really gravitate to. It's what gets my heart beating. It's certainly the kind of storytelling that I like to do. And that was really the genesis for kind of the feel that we were going for in Tomorrowland. Well, I think that Tomorrowland really evokes this idea of the future that is much different than the idea of the future that we have now, projected out from the year 2013. That Tomorrowland future is really evocative of the space age, that kind of that right stuff era, for lack of a better word. And so that idea of where's my jetpack? What happened to that future? Because I'm seeing all the other futures. I'm seeing the robots taking over and killing everyone. I'm seeing the Hunger Games. I'm seeing Blade Runner. I'm seeing urban sprawl. I'm seeing environmental disaster. I'm seeing the White House blow up in any number of versions. Where's my jetpack? And I do feel like it's not the most original idea in the world, but it is actually fresh in the landscape now. And most importantly, as corny as it is to say, it is really meaningful that Walt the futurist, this guy who basically in a time capsule, 50 years ago, sends a letter to the year 2006, and the last two sentences basically say but when you're reading this, my hope is that really there's no war anymore, and you read it and you go, oh man, I'd love to give this guy that. And that became part of the alchemy of the movie, too.
I'm BJ Novak. I play Robert Sherman in the movie. I'm here with Jason Schwartzman, who plays my brother Richard Sherman in the movie. Jason, you're also a musician yourself. What was it like to learn the musical style of another successful musician?
Well, I appreciate the way you worded that because it implies that I'm a successful musician, and I just want to say thank you for that. Well, for me,
I'm gonna walk away and text while you answer this.
Yeah, not a problem. I know I can play piano a little, but to learn it in Richard Sherman's actual style, I feel like that was the most invaluable information for me. And sitting down and really just taking lessons from him, essentially music lessons from him at his house, and looking at his hands and seeing how they ran across the piano keys. It was so inspiring, and I feel like just as a musician, I took away, the movie could have been canceled, shooting could have been canceled the night before, and though I would have been bummed, I also would have felt well, at least I got those insane music lessons. So what was it like for you, BJ, to have to imagine Bob Sherman, because unfortunately he's not alive? How did you, what were you going off of? What were your main sources of information?
Well, I saw the great documentary The Boys, which I know you saw too, and I got to speak to a lot of people who did know him. But most interestingly was what Richard said about him. And I was wondering before I asked Richard if he was going to be biased, if he was going to say, well, I wrote all the songs, or, I don't know. I didn't know him at that point. But he was so deeply candid and introspective and honest, the kind of way that you can't fake, that I really came away with a very full picture of who he was and what made him tick and what was special about him and what was difficult in his life. It was really cool to talk to Richard about him. He did his brother a lot of justice, I felt.